So I got a couple of news for upcoming Yakuza games. Well, actually, excuse my language. It's called Like a Dragon now. They're finally committing to the more accurate translated title. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I'm actually somewhat mixed on some of the announcements made during the RGG Summit. It's exciting stuff, don't get me wrong, but some do make me raise my eyebrows. So I'm gonna start with what I would consider to be my favorite announcement, which was the Judgment games being ported to Steam. This is really great news, not just because more people will be exposed to the games and the wide range of opportunities that arise from this, such as mods and graphically enhanced experience, but it also means that the likelihood of the Judgment series continuing has increased tremendously. You see, about a year ago, it was rumored that Lost Judgment would likely be the last Judgment game because the agency behind Takuya Kimura was refusing to allow the games to be ported to the PC, and with how much Sega and RGG Studios was banging on both the Xbox and PC after they had been constrained to the PlayStation ecosystem for a long time, there was a possibility that the reduced rate of success due to less copies being sold across all platforms would put an end to the Judgment series. However, now that these games are available on Steam, this marks a great start. Honestly, this was the news that made me the most happy. I'm personally probably not gonna buy this on Steam because I already have the PS5 versions of both those games. I am gonna keep an eye on the Linux side of things. The Yakuza games generally run pretty well on Linux. The only one that poses an issue is Yakuza 5 due to the reported audio sync issues, and I'm interested in following the stability of the new entries under Proton, but the real celebration comes in the future of these games. I mean, what can I say? Lost Judgment is literally my favorite RGG game. This is a godsend. Then we also heard news of Like a Dragon 8. I don't think anyone is surprised at this point. Of course, they were going to make a sequel. One thing that did surprise me though was Kiryu. And no, not because of his hairstyle, but because he may turn out to be more involved in the story than I initially expected. In fact, there's an in-between game that will be released called Like a Dragon Gaiden that will be centered on Kiryu. Now here's the thing, this is pure speculation on my part. I don't believe this game will be super massive, given how it will be released the same year Ishin will, which we'll get into in a minute, and before an unspecified date of Like a Dragon 8's 2024 launch. It sounds to me like this is going to be akin to a more condensed side story. I could be wrong, this may end up being as big scale as their flagship titles, but my prediction is that this will be a lower price title with less hours to play. But then again, maybe they're just planning on releasing two big games in the same year. It does help the fact that they already have material to go off of with Ishin instead of having to build from scratch, so we'll have to wait and see. What I will say is that I'm a little bit concerned regarding how much Kiryu will continue to get involved in the Like a Dragon series because it's going to become increasingly more difficult for Ichiban to escape the shadows of Kiryu. I mean, look, I knew Kiryu would come back, it was inevitable, but when I see him walking alongside Ichiban in the trailer, clearly communicating that he will likely play a big role in the story that they have planned, it makes it harder for Ichiban to stand on his own as the new successor, which I think is a shame because I'm a pretty big fan of the guy and I like what Like a Dragon 7 was capable of building for itself, with the new combat system, cast of characters, and new factions of underground organizations. So hopefully Kiryu doesn't steal the show too much, at least not in Like a Dragon 8, because for the upcoming Ishii game, you can't help but feel pretty fucking hyped. A lot of people have been asking for Yakuza Ishin to be localized to the West, probably more than any other region-locked Yakuza game. But not only are we getting that, but we're also getting something that's arguably better, with a new engine which may prove to be pretty beneficial, especially for PlayStation 4 consoles, because even though the original game ran at 60 as well, with Unreal Engine 4, it allows for the visuals to be enhanced without having to resort to what they're currently using, because even though I like the Dragon engine, it is definitely a very taxing engine to use. On the PS4, the only way they're able to provide a playable experience is by lowering the resolution to 900p and keeping the frame rate at 30, targeted nonetheless. Even the world rendering, you can definitely notice a lot of textures not loading as seamlessly as they did in Yakuza 0 and Kiwami, especially in the early Yakuza 6 days. But with Unreal Engine 4, I'm hoping that they can keep the frame rate to 60 and the resolution to 1080p, which is not only good for PlayStation 4 players, but even for PS5. If they can reach this level of optimization with this older console, I can imagine them delivering some pretty nice results with the new gen. Plus, what made the original game so special was how it felt like a reunion of all of the past characters that we had met over the years. And right now, it's actually a pretty important time to revive this spirit because so many people got introduced to these games recently because of the Kiwami remakes and the remastered collection. And with the newer entries such as 0, 6, and 7, it's nice that they would be willing to recast some of the iconic actors from those games that people fell in love. But here's where my main concern lies. For one, even though it's cool that Ishin is getting localized, I do wonder how necessary it was to remake the game, especially when the original game still holds up gameplay wise and graphically. In fact, it looks better than some of the games that they've recently remastered. Plus, when I look at the Kiwami remakes and the remastered collection, I look at games that are attempting to re-release titles that were locked in their respective consoles that they were released for and no longer being sold in official retails. Ishin, on the other hand, you can technically still buy this game on the ancient digital stores, so it's not a lost game. Really, I think this game more so needed to be ported in other platforms and localized for the West, and if they had done just that, it would have been enough to preserve the game. But I guess they went for a more transformative method of reviving the game, which is fine. I'm still really excited for the game, and there are a lot of benefits to it being the case. I guess maybe the reason why I'm this unsettled is because I'm out here wondering what's going to happen to Yakuza Kenzan. Is that game ever gonna get remastered or remade? Because that's the one game that actually is very difficult to preserve, especially because it's a PlayStation 3 exclusive. PlayStation 3 exclusives are one of the most difficult games to preserve because they are quite reliant on the PlayStation 3 platform to even be able to run them. At least PlayStation 2 games have the benefit of not having as strong of an encryption that they can even be recognized in modern computers with disk drives. In fact, I've actually played PlayStation 2 games directly from their discs using PCSX2. I can't do that with PlayStation 3 games, and with the lack of backwards compatibility for this generation of consoles, we're basically forever forced to rely on a console that will eventually die out. This is why I strongly encourage anyone who has a PlayStation 3 to just jailbreak it. Use it to back up all of the PS3 games you've ever owned. That way you will at least have the game files with you, which can be used to emulate the game using RPCS3 or any other emulators that we may see in the future. But anyway, that's my little tangent. 2023 will certainly be a year for prosperity when it comes to RGG Studios. Hopefully they'll deliver some bangers. In the meantime, I have to work on another video regarding HoloLive error on Linux. Stay tuned for that. In the meantime, hope you're doing well.